All right, bit of a different video here today. So long story short, working on the Honda 250 here. It's a TRX 250, like TE5 or something like that. It's a 2005. I want to say they call them a Honda Recon. The sticker, yeah, there it is. So anyways, this is what we use around the house just to kind of do different things around the property. And long story short, we're using it to drag the paddocks the other day. And the idle was a little high, so I was working on the carburetor and got that cleaned out. I shut it off last night, and I went back to restart it to see how it would cold start with the carburetor, and it wouldn't start. It's kind of weird. It's never done that. We've had this thing for a lot of years. So I figured maybe it's flooded. I pulled the spark plug. Spark plug looked fine. I checked it for spark, and we had no spark. Like, all right, that's really strange. This never happened before. So I went up here and I checked out all the switches, made sure the ignition switch was right, make sure the kill switches weren't stuck on. Then I went and looked at the CDI box, or ignition control module. I tested all the wires to it. I made sure the kill switch wire wasn't interrupting and causing any issues there, and it wasn't. I went ahead and cranked it and checked our stator output to make sure it was at the module, and it was. Like, man, this is kind of crazy. It was just running not even 10 minutes later, and I shut it off. It didn't stall, anything like that. It was running just fine. I shut it off, let it sit for 10 minutes, went back to restart it, wouldn't start. So just kind of crazy, one of those things. So I go to what I would call the crank position sensor or the pickup coil, and I ohm test it from the one wire that goes in to ground, and it's opened. Like, dang it. Like, I don't know what the spec is, but I know open's not good. Makes this incomplete circuit, makes that sensor's bad. So I look up the ohm specs on it, and I want to say it's like 350 ohms of resistance. It's opened. So that means we got to pull the stator cover off, which is quite the project. So the long story short, and what I wanted to show you guys, is everything I read and everything I seen anyone working on these, they have to pull the engine out to remove the stator cover. I just wanted to show you guys, you actually do not have to. So I just got the stator cover off. It did take a little bit of time for sure. It's just a bunch of 10mm bolts. And then you have, it's beneath me here, a 14mm headed bolt for the pull start. That just came right out. That wasn't any issue there. And like I said, just a bunch of 10mm. So I went ahead and got all those bolts out. I got the wiring disconnected, and I was able to just wiggle the stator cover out, kind of turn it, and bring it right up through here where the airbox would be. I don't know how much time this saved me. I definitely feel like it has to be easier than pulling the engine out, though. It really didn't seem like anything too crazy to get it out of there. Now, I do know it's going to be difficult to reinstall it because there's quite a bit of things you got to line up when reinstalling, but I'm sure I'll get it. I'm just sure it's going to be a bit of a pain in the butt. So just wanted to show you guys that. If you guys are working on one of these, like I said, it's either a TRX 250 2005, but there's a bunch of years where this is all the same. I don't know the exact specs, but I want to say like 2000 to like 2012. These things are pretty much all the same, but you can, in fact, remove the stator cover with the engine in. Just wanted to show you guys that. But I'll show you also what I'm talking about on this ignition pickup coil, or what I would call a crank sensor. So here's the stator cover removed. This is your stator, and then this is what I would call your crank position sensor or ignition pickup coil. Basically, I just ohmed out this wire, so that's the one wire that goes to it, through the harness to make sure my wire itself is good. And it is. I got a complete circuit. I got like 1 ohm resistance. But now if I ohm out from this stud, so that's the terminal, to ground, that's where we should have 350 ohms of resistance. It is in fact open right here. So that tells me that sensor is 100% bad. So that's going to be our problem. I'm going to go ahead and get the sensor ordered, get a new gasket, and this thing's always kind of idled funny and been hard to get warmed up. Once it warms up, it's great, but I've always fought two things. Is if you get the carburetor kind of dialed in to warm up quickly and idle good cold, it screams really high RPM once it's warmed up. If you set the idle really good when it's warmed up, it's a pain in the butt to get it to warm up. So I went ahead and looked, and you do have an idle air mixture screw right here, but from the factory, they're not really made to be adjusted. You can adjust them. I was actually turning it with a flat blade screwdriver on the flat part of it earlier. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove it, and I had it out earlier. Now I'm going to order a normal one that just has a flathead screwdriver adjustment point for it. That way I can reach in there with the flat blade screwdriver and adjust it pretty easily when it's on here and running. I did say they also make ones that are extended that have a little knob to adjust them. So I'm going to look into that, just make it a little bit easier to tune this thing in. Like I said, I've cleaned the carburetor. Everything like that's all good. It's always been this way. So I want to say, so previous owner bought this thing when it was like a year or two old, and it's always done it since the beginning when they had this. So hopefully we can make that a little bit better. But I just wanted to show you guys kind of, it is possible to remove that stator cover with the engine in here. Takes a little bit of time for sure, but completely possible. Hopefully this helps you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Keep it saucy.